In this video, you will learn about how to define names for cells or ranges and use them in your Excel formula. To define the name of a cell or a range, we can select the cell or range and then type in the name in the name box. For example, here we can type in the name species1 and press enter, and the name of the cell will be stored as species1. Another way we can define the name of a cell or a range is by selecting the cell or the range and going to Formulas and selecting Define Name. Here, we can type in the name that we want to define for this range. For example, here, we can enter the name first 5 trees. And it's important to note that the name shouldn't contain any spaces, so we would need to separate each word by using an underscore, and the name should also start with either a letter or an underscore. So if our name has already met all the requirements, we can click OK. You can see here that when we selected the exact same range that we have selected before when we were defining the name of that range will show up in the name box. We can also check whether the name has been defined properly by typing an equal sign and the name that we have defined earlier. And we can see that once we have entered the name, the range that the name corresponds to have been highlighted in blue. To look at the list of names and edit the names that you have defined, you can click on Name Manager, and you can see here the names for the range and cell that we have defined earlier. And here is how the define name function looks like on Mac. And as you can see here, the Name Manager is contained within the same pop-up window where you can define the name for the cell or range. And you can click on the plus or minus sign under the box to add or delete a defined name. Another useful function that you can use to define names for your data is create from selection. This is especially useful when you want to name the data in each column based on their column headers. So for example here, we can select all of the data in our table by pressing Ctrl A or Command A, and then we select create from selection. And here, since we are naming the data in each column based on the column headers that are in the top row, we would select top row and click OK. Now, if we go back to the Name Manager, you can see that the data in each column has been given a name based on their column headers. Lastly, you can refer to the names that you have defined earlier when you're writing a formula. For example, if we want to find the total DBH in this table, we can easily do that by using the sum formula and referring to the name that we have defined earlier for the DBH data using create from selection, and the formula will return the sum of all DBH in this table. You can see from this example that using defined names in your formula can make the process faster because it automatically selects the range that contains all of the DBH data. It also makes it easier for you to remember which data you were referring to when you were writing down the formula.